Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're diving into a really fascinating, honestly kind of messy shift in the modern dating landscape. We're looking at exactly what happens when the educational backgrounds in a relationship just don't match up. It's a specific demographic reality that's completely changing how we pair off, how our families react, and how we navigate our social circles. Now, you've probably heard the narrative that successful, highly educated women struggle to find partners. It's a super common cultural talking point, right? But to truly grasp what's going on here, we have to look past those surface level myths. We need to focus on the very real, very human friction this creates. Because, well, it's not just about getting a date, that's about what happens to the social fabric of a couple when they cross that educational divide. Take this real-world example from a Reddit thread. You've got a woman working on her Ph.D., and she marries a guy managing an auto repair shop. And what happens? Their social circle is immediately dismissive. Her family literally wonders if she's settling. I mean, this perfectly highlights the intense social judgments couples are facing when their resumes don't perfectly align. This is a deeply personal struggle, and it's playing out in living rooms and dinner parties everywhere. Part 1, the new marriage market. To really understand why this is happening at such a personal level, we first need to zoom out. Okay, get this. Today, there are 1.6 million more women than men attending four-year colleges in the United States. 1.6 million. That is a massive structural change that just completely obliterates historical norms. I mean, for decades, men outpaced women in higher education. But starting around the mid-1980s, that trend entirely reversed itself. To put that into perspective, the data here is actually staggering. A woman born in 1930 had nearly 2 college-educated men for every college-educated woman in her dating pool. But for a millennial born in 1980, that ratio plummeted to 0.8, meaning there are literally not enough college-educated men for every college-educated woman to marry one, assuming, of course, they only wanted to date within their own educational bracket. Which brings us to part 2, the rise of hypogamy. With this relative shortage of similarly educated men, the marriage market had to adapt. Because women aren't just opting to stay single. Instead, they're increasingly, for lack of a better term, marrying down educationally. They're engaging in what sociologists formally call educational hypogamy. Historically, we usually saw hypergamy, right? Women marrying men with more education. But the script has completely flipped on its head. And what's truly fascinating is how rapidly this setup has grown. For women born in 1930, only about 2.3% ended up in a marriage where they had a 4-year degree and their husband didn't. But by the 1980 cohort, that number quadrupled to nearly 10%. That's a massive jump in just a few generations. In fact, if we isolate just the couples today who have mixed education levels, a whopping 62% feature a woman with higher educational attainment than her partner, up from just 35% in the early 50s. So the statistical norm for a mixed education couple today is actually the woman holding the degree. Part 3, the pressure of expectations. Now, the demographic data might normalize this, but the reality at the family Thanksgiving table is a whole different story. Let's be honest, politely passing the gravy can quickly turn into a familial interrogation. This is where the social impact truly hits hard. Parents frequently push these powerful expectations onto their kids, seeing a marriage to an educational equal as a way to preserve family status. So when a daughter with a master's degree brings home a tradesman, it triggers intense kinship anxiety. You get friends whispering about settling. You get parents voicing fears about financial vulnerability or lack of long-term ambition. It places this enormous, exhausting pressure on the adult child to constantly defend their relationship. And the psychological toll here? It's heavy. Under persistent criticism, the less educated partner can dangerously internalize all of this, leading to a deficit of self-worth, where they genuinely feel they don't deserve their successful partner. Meanwhile, the college-educated spouse deals with what researchers call status embarrassment. They're caught right in the middle between their genuine love for their partner and the harsh, judgmental gaze of their family. Part 4, the polite inquisition. Because this private tension, it definitely doesn't stay private. It spills out into the public sphere, especially at middle-class professional gatherings. We all know this dreaded question, right? What do you do for a living? It seems like a perfectly innocent icebreaker. But for a non-college educated spouse, especially when working in manual trades or maybe retail or service sectors, this question acts as a brutal tool for social positioning. In a room full of lawyers and academics, asking a retail manager what they do can instantly trigger acute status anxiety. When we actually map out these social interactions, this really clear, painful cycle of awkwardness emerges. First, you have the context, like navigating professional networks or fielding that "what do you do" inquiry. That triggers a behavioral reaction from the non-college partner. Think defensiveness, withdrawal, or just complete silence. Sometimes they might even intentionally show up to a formal gathering in a hoodie and jeans just as a defense mechanism. The consequence? Professional peers misread this as a lack of social competence, which slowly isolates the couple. The educated spouse might try to push their partner to fit in, which just breeds resentment and leads to a massive decline in joint social participation. It's a vicious cycle. But it is absolutely crucial to note that society treats degrees and paychecks very, very differently. While mismatched degrees, educational hypogamy, are becoming a normalized, accepted demographic reality, mismatched incomes are a different story. Work hypogamy, or the wife earns significantly more, still faces heavy societal stigma. Occupational prestige and earning capacity are still deeply tied to traditional gender identities. So practically speaking, an income mismatch often causes way more friction than a simple degree mismatch. Which brings us to part 5. Does the marriage survive? The million-dollar question. With all this familial backlash, the parental disappointment, the dinner party awkwardness, are these marriages at a higher risk of failing? Well, the data here is actually incredibly encouraging. Historically, yes, this dynamic was toxic to marital stability. Back in the 1950s, these marriages faced up to a 38% higher risk of divorce just because they violated strict male breadwinner norms. But modern reality? That divorce gap has completely vanished. Gone. Today, couples where the wife is more educated are no more likely to divorce than couples who are educational equals. The numbers prove that, honestly, couples are figuring it out. When partners can bridge that professional gap with genuine mutual respect and a highly cooperative division of labor, they find a lasting stability, completely ignoring the background noise. By viewing their different class backgrounds and skill sets as complementary strengths rather than flaws, and by totally discarding those rigid gender roles, these couples are building highly resilient, modern partnerships. So, I want to leave you with this to consider as we wrap up today's explainer. As our demographic landscapes continue to evolve, and the pool of educated women continues to vastly outpace men, will our social and familial expectations finally catch up to the reality of modern love? Honestly, it seems like the couples themselves are already leading the way. Thanks for hanging out and joining me on this deep dive.